The stars of the Union galaxy had never looked so dim. For centuries, the Union of Stars had stood proud as a gathering of many races, bound together by peace treaties and trade. Their fleets patrolled the space lanes, their councils passed laws with calm voices, and their people lived in an age free of great wars. But now all that glory was burning away. The cruel dominion had come. No one knew where they first appeared. Some said they came from beyond the rim. Others whispered they had been hidden for ages, waiting for the galaxy to grow soft. Whatever their origin, the result was the same. They were machines, cold, precise, and endless. Wherever the cruel marched, worlds turned silent. Cities that once shone with light became black shells, orbiting stars with no life left to warm them. They consumed everything. No plea for mercy slowed them. No treaty could reach them. At first, the Union believed they could resist. Their fleets were strong, their admirals confident. But battle after battle proved the truth. The cruel could not be stopped. For every machine ship destroyed, 10 more arrived. For every victory, 3 defeats followed. And slowly the borders of the Union began to fall inward, like walls crumbling under endless waves. The Union Council gathered in their grand chamber, a hall of glass and silver floating in the heart of the capital system. Representatives of dozens of races sat in silence, their voices heavy with fear. Chancellor Alera, an elder of the Arani people, stood at the center, her golden robes dim beneath the chamber's light. "We have sent messages to all known powers," she said, her voice carrying sorrow. "We have asked the elders of Orion. We have begged the seraphic kingdoms. We have called upon the nomads of the Rim, but none will come. The galaxy hides behind its walls while we are torn apart." Murmurs rose through the chamber. A reptilian delegate hissed angrily. "So we are abandoned? Must we fall alone?" Another, a tall crystalline being, spoke with a trembling voice. "Perhaps if we surrender, the cruel will spare some of us." "No," Alera said firmly, though her heart wavered. "The cruel do not bargain. We must keep fighting even if hope fades." Her words sounded brave, but in her mind she wondered how long they could truly resist. Already millions were dead. Already, worlds that once sent food and ships had gone dark. She knew what everyone feared. The Union was dying and no help was coming. But the call had been sent. A final, desperate message had been cast into the void, a beacon screaming for aid from anyone who might hear it. Across the silent stars it traveled, carrying a single plea: "Help us or we will all fall." Weeks passed. Battles raged. Entire fleets vanished in flashes of fire. The cruel came closer to the Union's heart. Then one night in the Capitol Observatory, the long-range scanners detected movement. A cluster of ships emerging from the dark beyond mapped space. The observers leaned closer, confused. The ships were crude, their hulls scarred and patched. They lacked the elegant curves of Union vessels, the sleek silver lines of advanced empires. These ships looked old, as though they had fought too many battles and survived only by stubborn repairs. The report reached the council. At first, no one believed it. "Another refugee fleet," one delegate sighed. Another group of lost souls fleeing from the cruel. But when the ships drew nearer, their signals came clear. They were not refugees. They carried weapons, cannons bolted to their hulls, missile bays marked with scars, and armor thick with patches from ancient wars. Their banners were unfamiliar. Their language was rough. But through the static came a clear introduction. They called themselves humans. The council gathered again, faces filled with both curiosity and worry. Ambassador Saren, a tall avian, tilted his head in confusion. "Humans, I have searched the archives. That name does not appear in our records." "Perhaps they are from the Deep Rim," another suggested. "Some forgotten people lost to the archives." Chancellor Alera listened to the transmission again. The voice was harsh, not musical like most Union tongues. It carried weight like stone breaking under pressure. The human leader gave no promises, no flowery greetings. Only one message was sent: "We received your call. We are coming." Simple words, but there was something in the tone, a firmness, a steel edge. The council debated for hours. Could these strangers be trusted? Could they even stand against the cruel, when so many great powers had failed? Finally, the decision was made. They would allow the human fleet to enter Union space. Perhaps, Alera thought, they would at least add a little strength to their failing defense. Even a spark was better than nothing. The first time Union officers saw the humans in person, they were struck with shock. These were not like the graceful races of the Union, who wore silks and ornaments even in war. The humans wore plain armor, scratched and dented from old battles. Their eyes were sharp, their movements alert as if every hallway might hide an enemy. They carried themselves not like diplomats or explorers, but like survivors who had lived too long with death at their side. Captain Joran, a Union officer, met the human commander on a docking bridge. The man's face was lined, his hair streaked with gray, but his stance was unbending. He introduced himself simply as Commander Hale. His voice was calm, but Joran felt something unsettling behind it, as though this man had seen too much war to ever rest. "You called?" Hale said. "We came," Joran blinked. "You came to fight the Cruel?" Hale's eyes narrowed. "We came because you asked, and because we know what it means to face an enemy that does not stop." He paused, then added quietly, "We have fought such wars before." Joran wanted to ask more, but Hale was already moving, speaking into his comm about fleet formations, supply lines, and battle readiness. There were no speeches, no discussions of honor or treaties. Only plans, only war. When the humans joined the defense fleet, the Union admirals remained doubtful. Their ships were old, their technology crude compared to modern standards. But the first battle erased all doubts. The Cruel came with a swarm of machines, their ships advancing in perfect formations. The Union fleet prepared for another desperate stand, ready to lose more than they gained. But then the humans struck. They did not fight with elegance. Their maneuvers were rough, their attacks brutal. They hurled themselves into the enemy lines, ramming when needed, sacrificing ships to destroy greater foes. Where Union commanders hesitated, humans pressed forward. Where others would retreat, humans fought until their weapons melted. Their courage was not noble, it was fierce, born from endless survival. By the time the battle ended, the Cruel fleet was in ruins. Half the human ships were destroyed, yet their commanders stood tall, unbroken. For the first time in many months, the Union fleet had not only survived, they had won. Whispers spread across the galaxy. The humans had come. They were not allies in the gentle sense, not saviors who promised peace. They were something else, warriors forged by endless struggle, survivors of battles no one else had endured. And though they were few, though their ships were battered, one truth became clear. The Union was no longer alone, because when no allies came, only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars had arrived. The battle was over, but the scars of it remained. The Union fleet drifted in silence, its ships damaged but intact. On the other side of the system, wrecks of Cruel war machines floated like broken bones in space. For the first time in months, the Union had won. And for the first time, it was because of strangers. The humans' Union officers gathered in the command chamber, speaking in hushed tones. They replayed the recordings of the battle again and again. The way the humans fought left them both impressed and unsettled. Their tactics seemed reckless, almost suicidal. But somehow it worked. Chancellor Alera watched quietly as the counselors argued. One admiral, his crystalline body glowing with frustration, slammed his hand against the table. They threw ships into Cruel formations as if they were tools to be broken. "That is not strategy, it is madness." Another commander, a scaled reptilian, shook his head. "Madness it may be, but it brought victory. Would you prefer more defeats?" The voices rose, anger mixing with admiration. Alera did not speak. Her eyes stayed fixed on the recording of the human commander, Hale, standing on his bridge giving calm, firm orders, even as explosions tore across his fleet. His expression never changed. There was no fear, no hesitation, only focus. These humans, she thought, were not like other allies. They did not fight for ideals or unity. They fought because survival was their nature. While the council debated, the Union soldiers in the field were already learning more about their new companions. Captain Joran found himself working closely with the humans after the battle. He boarded one of their ships, the Iron Spear, to discuss repairs and supply needs. What he saw stunned him. The Union kept its vessels neat, with polished corridors and shining walls. The human ship was different. The hulls were scarred, blackened from old fires. Plates of metal were welded in crooked lines where past damage had been patched. Wires hung from the ceiling like vines, humming with unstable energy. But the crew moved with practiced ease. They knew every corner, every weakness. They repaired with speed, using whatever parts they could find. There was no concern for beauty, only for function. "Your ship looks damaged," Joran admitted. trying to find polite words. A human engineer laughed, wiping grease from her hands. Damaged? This ship has fought 20 battles and survived. You don't throw away a fighter just because it has scars. Scars mean it's still alive. Duran nodded slowly, though he could not imagine Union officers accepting such conditions. To him, a ship so worn would have been retired long ago. But here it was, still fighting. Commander Hale met him in the strategy room. Maps of star systems glowed on the table, marked with red lines where the Cruel advanced. Hale barely greeted him before beginning to discuss future moves. We hit them hard, Hale said, pointing to the destroyed Cruel fleet. But they'll be back. Machines don't feel fear. They'll send more. Yes, Duran agreed. But at least we've bought time. The Council believes. The Council, Hale interrupted, his tone sharp but calm, can believe what it wants. Belief doesn't stop enemies. Preparation does. We need to strike before they regroup. Duran hesitated. Strike? That is not how we usually fight. The Union focuses on defense, conserving our strength. Hale's eyes hardened. Defense alone is just waiting for the end. You think the Cruel will tire? They won't. You hide, you delay, but eventually they'll crush you. The only way to win is to make them bleed for every step until they break apart. The words were blunt, almost harsh. But Duran saw the conviction behind them. These humans had lived through wars without end. To them, survival was not passive. It was active, relentless. When the Union joined the humans for a second battle, the difference in styles became even clearer. The Cruel came again, larger this time. Their ships stretched like black blades across the stars. The Union fleet formed tight defensive lines, shields raised, ready to endure the storm. But the humans broke formation before the first shots were fired. Their ships surged forward like wolves, spreading chaos in the enemy ranks. Missiles streaked through the void, not in neat patterns but in wild, unpredictable waves. Small human ships darted close, too close, ramming and tearing into Cruel hulls with explosives strapped to their own frames. The Union commanders shouted in disbelief. To them, such actions were madness. But the humans did not see madness. They saw victory. For every ship lost, they took 2 Cruel with them. The battle raged for hours. In the end, the Cruel were forced to retreat once again. The Union had lost ships, yes, but far fewer than expected. The humans had taken the brunt of the enemy's fury, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. To the Union, it looked like cruelty toward their own kind. To the humans, it was survival. After the battle, whispers grew louder across the fleet. Union officers admired the humans' courage, but they also feared their ruthlessness. One young officer asked aloud, "Do they care for life at all? Even their own?" Another replied, "They care enough to make sure someone lives. Even if not all." Chancellor Alara listened to these whispers. She understood the unease, but she also knew the truth. Without the humans, the Union would already have fallen. Meanwhile, the Cruel themselves began to change. Until now, they had advanced without resistance, destroying everything with machine precision. But now they faced something unexpected, an enemy that did not fight like the rest of the galaxy. The humans were unpredictable. They took risks no logical mind would accept. They sacrificed ships where machines calculated retreat. They turned chaos into strategy. And slowly the Cruel's perfect order began to crack. Reports came in from other fronts. Cruel fleets that once advanced without pause were now delayed, tangled in brutal fights with the humans. The machines adapted, but never fast enough. Humans always found another reckless move, another desperate strike, another way to survive. Back on the capital world, the council met again. This time the debate was more intense. "We must be cautious," one delegate warned. "The humans are dangerous. Their ways are not ours. If we follow their path, we risk becoming like them. But if we do not," another replied, "we risk extinction." Which is worse? Chancellor Alara spoke last. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. "We may fear them, but we cannot deny what they have done. They came when no one else answered. They fight when others hide. Whatever else they may be, they are the reason we are still alive." The chamber fell silent. Even those who doubted could not deny it. On the human flagship, Commander Hale looked out at the stars. His fleet was smaller now. Many ships destroyed, crews lost. But his eyes did not soften. He knew loss. He had known it 1,000 times before. An officer approached. "Commander, the Union is uneasy with us." Hale gave a faint smile, one without humor. "Of course they are. We frighten them. But fear is not our enemy. The crew are. As long as they keep fighting beside us, we'll keep fighting for them. The officer hesitated. And after? Hale's gaze returned to the endless stars. His voice was quiet but steady. After, then we survive, like we always have. And so the Union learned the truth. The humans were not saviors sent to protect them. They were not gentle allies nor noble guardians. They were something harsher, something raw. They were the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars, and now, the galaxy was beginning to see just what that meant. The galaxy trembled under the shadow of the cruel. Their fleets, though weakened by the humans' surprise attacks, were far from defeated. The Union had survived the first decisive strikes, but the cost was high. Entire systems were left in ruins, and the Union's fleets were stretched thin, forced to defend worlds that had not yet recovered. Commander Hale paced the deck of the Iron Spear, his eyes scanning reports from across the front lines. Every message carried news of battle, loss, or destruction. Ships burned. Crews were gone. Yet the cruel pressed forward, relentless and unyielding. Hale's voice was calm, but the weight behind it was clear. We cannot stop, not yet. Every world they take is a lesson we must remember. Every ship we lose teaches us a way to survive, and every victory we claim reminds the galaxy what humans do when they refuse to die quietly. Captain Joran of the Union fleet had learned more about the humans in the past months than he had in his entire career. Their methods were extreme, their strategies unpredictable, but the results were undeniable. He had seen the humans sacrifice entire squadrons to achieve a single tactical advantage. He had seen them lure cruel forces into traps that no logical mind would attempt. He had seen them endure loss and continue fighting without hesitation. Union officers whispered that the humans were reckless, even cruel. But Joran had begun to understand another truth. Humans did not see it as cruelty. They saw it as the price of survival. The next battle came in the outskirts of the Shalir system. The cruel had gathered nearly 1,000 ships, aiming to capture a key starbase and cut off Union supply lines. Union commanders debated strategy. Defensive lines? Retreat, negotiation? Hale did not hesitate. He drew a simple line on the tactical map. We strike first. We take the fight to them. If we wait, we die. Union officers protested, citing the heavy losses they would face. Hale ignored them. His mind was already on the field. His ships were old, patched together from the ruins of past conflicts, yet he knew every crew, every weapon, every flaw. He would use the weaknesses of his fleet as advantages. Where the cruel expected fear, he would deliver chaos. The battle began with the Union fleet forming standard defensive lines. Cruel ships advanced in precise formation, their weapons cutting through space with deadly accuracy. But the humans had already moved ahead. Hale's squadrons darted through asteroid fields, weaving between debris and gravity wells. Smaller human vessels rammed into larger cruel ships, detonating charges that shredded hulls and crippled shields. Every maneuver was dangerous, almost impossible. Yet every strike landed exactly where it needed to. Captain Joran watched through the sensor screens, astonished. They are insane, he muttered. And yet, they are winning. Hale's voice came over the comm, calm and sharp. Insane is another word for survival. Stay alive, adjust, and follow orders. You will see why humans endure. The Union fleet followed cautiously, inspired but fearful. Ships that would normally fight in formation now mimicked the humans' wild, unpredictable style. Cruel forces, unprepared for this chaos, faltered. Their perfect calculations failed as human attacks struck from unexpected angles, and Union ships pressed forward with renewed courage. Yet the cost was terrible. Entire human squadrons were destroyed. Their ships, old and patched, could not withstand cruel fire for long. Crews were lost, sacrificed for the greater plan. Hale never flinched. Each loss was noted, each mistake studied, and each victory celebrated with quiet focus. In one moment of the battle, a massive, cruel war carrier loomed over a Union supply convoy, ready to obliterate it. Hale personally led a strike team of human fighters. They dodged volleys of cruel missiles and cannon fire, weaving between debris. Explosives detonated along the war carrier's hull, tearing apart sections of the massive ship. Human pilots gave their lives, crashing into turrets and engines. Finally, the war carrier was crippled. It drifted, burning while survivors scrambled from life pods. The cruel line wavered. The humans had done what no Union fleet could have done alone, turned near certain defeat into a tactical victory. Union officers stared at the screens, silent. They had survived, yes, but barely. The humans had paid in blood and fire, and yet they were still standing. As the battle ended, the Union fleet limped back to safe space. Hale called a meeting with the remaining Union commanders. "You have seen what we do," he said. "You have seen how we fight. Do not mistake caution for wisdom. Hesitation will kill you faster than the cruel ever will. Survival is about action, about calculation under pressure, and about accepting the cost before it is imposed upon you." A young Union admiral asked, hesitant, "And what of the lives lost? The ships destroyed?" Hale's expression was unreadable. "The price is always there. You can grieve, but you cannot stop. Survival does not wait for sorrow. Every life we save tomorrow depends on the choices we make today." Union officers absorbed his words silently. Some were inspired, others frightened, but none could argue. The humans had proven themselves again. The cruel on their side were beginning to change tactics. Machines that had once advanced predictably now advanced with caution. Their algorithms adjusted to the chaos the humans created, but the humans adapted faster. Hale's experience in countless wars allowed him to anticipate cruel reactions before the machines themselves calculated them. Union scientists observed with awe. "They think like humans," one said. "Not like our fleets. They adapt, improvise, and survive. We have never seen anything like it," Hale smiled faintly. "Survival is not about elegance. It is about living. And we humans know that better than most." The battles continued for months. Worlds were liberated, then destroyed again, then liberated once more. The human crews pressed forward without pause, training Union soldiers in survival tactics, teaching them how to improvise, how to fight without hesitation, and how to survive when all seemed lost. Union soldiers began to notice something remarkable. The humans did not fight for glory. They did not fight for medals. They fought because it was the only choice. And in doing so, they inspired courage in those who had never believed they could survive such horrors. Yet with each victory came cost. Entire human fleets were annihilated. Worlds they had saved were left in ruins. Union observers whispered, "Were these humans heroes or something else entirely?" Hale ignored the whispers. He had seen far worse, and he knew the truth. Sometimes to survive one must pay the full price in blood and fire. And he would do it, every time. In one decisive campaign, the humans led a combined Union-human fleet into a system controlled by cruel war factories. The ships were enormous, protected by layers of machine defenses. The humans' plan was simple but brutal: infiltrate the system, sabotage the factories, and leave nothing usable for the cruel. The plan worked, but at terrible cost. Human ships exploded in precise patterns to destroy key targets. Union fleets supported them, but many ships were lost in the process. By the end, the war factories were destroyed, the cruel production line halted, and the humans had suffered staggering losses. When the survivors returned, Union officers approached Hale, awed and terrified. "You risked everything," one said. "So many ships, so many lives." Hale's eyes were steady. "Yes, and it was necessary. They will rebuild elsewhere, yes, but here now we have saved lives. The galaxy survives. That is all that matters." As the dust of battle settled, the Union began to understand a truth they had not wanted to admit. The humans were not conventional allies. They did not fight for honor, for law, or for medals. They fought for survival, relentless, unyielding, unstoppable. And in their way, they were shaping the galaxy, showing what it meant to endure, to fight, and to survive when all seemed lost. Chancellor Alera reflected on the months of struggle. She had feared these humans at first. Their methods were shocking, their tactics ruthless. But now she knew. Without them, the Union would have already fallen. They were dangerous, yes, but more than that, they were the only hope. And the galaxy whispered in awe and fear the truth of the humans' legacy. No allies came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. The cruel were relentless, but the humans had taught the Union one truth. Survival demanded action, not hesitation. The final stage of the war loomed. Intelligence reports indicated the cruel's central war factory, a moon-sized station orbiting a distant star, was producing endless fleets of machines. If it were not destroyed, the Union's survival would be impossible. Chancellor Alera and Union commanders gathered in the command hall. The humans were ready, though their numbers were fewer than before. Hale stood at the front, calm, surveying the maps. The room was tense. Every officer understood the stakes. "This is it," Hale said quietly. "If we fail, the crew will rebuild and nothing will stop them. But if we succeed, we can end this war." Union commanders exchanged glances. They had seen Hale's plans before, seen the humans risk everything and win against impossible odds. Yet this plan, this attack, was more daring than any before. Entire fleets would dive into the heart of cruel space, facing the factory directly. Losses would be staggering. Hale's eyes swept the room. "We have no choice. Survival is the only path forward, and the galaxy depends on us." The attack began with stealth. The human-led fleet advanced through a narrow asteroid field, undetected by cruel sensors. Smaller Union ships followed cautiously, relying on the humans' experience. Every vessel carried weapons, explosives, and hope, though the latter felt fragile against the scale of the task ahead. Hale led the first wave personally. His ship, the Iron Spear, had survived countless battles, patched repeatedly, scarred with old damage, yet it moved like a predator stalking prey. Human fighters darted ahead, weaving between enemy sensors, dodging automated defenses and detonating charges to clear paths. Union soldiers watched in awe as the humans' tactics unfolded. No one had ever seen such a combination of courage and calculation. Machines that seemed invincible fell to the human strategies one by one. The battle reached the heart of the cruel factory. It was enormous, a metallic moon covered in weapons and production lines. Machine ships swarmed around it like bees defending a hive. Human fighters surged forward, striking at critical points. Explosives were deployed in corridors, power conduits were destroyed, and massive fires erupted along the surface. The humans did not hesitate. Ships collided with machine vessels to create chain reactions. Pilots risked their lives in close combat, ramming, detonating, and escaping at the last moment. Every action was designed for maximum damage, and every loss was calculated. Union officers recorded everything in disbelief. Where their fleets would normally falter, the humans thrived. Where their soldiers hesitated, the humans acted with cold precision. As the battle raged, Hale's voice came over the comm. "Keep moving. Focus on the core. This is the heart of their power. If it falls, the crew will have nowhere to rebuild." Union commanders obeyed. They had learned by now the humans' plans worked because hesitation was dangerous. Survival demanded trust in action. Explosions rocked the cruel factory. Smoke and fire spread across the surface. The humans moved like shadows, striking again and again, refusing to stop even when their own ships were destroyed around them. Hale's squadron, battered but unbroken, reached the core of the factory. Charges were set, explosives calibrated, and detonation was imminent. "Prepare for impact," Hale said. "This is the moment that decides the galaxy's fate." The Union fleet watched as the humans withdrew just enough to trigger the explosion. The factory erupted with a blinding light. Shockwaves tore through the orbiting ships, collapsing the surrounding structures. The cruel fleet, caught in the destruction, was shattered. Thousands of machine vessels were obliterated instantly, while the remainder retreated in disarray. For the first time, the cruel had been truly defeated. Their central production facility was gone, their fleets crippled, and their control over the galaxy broken. The humans had achieved what no other race could. Union officers cheered, some in disbelief. Yet amid the celebration, there was a quiet realization. The victory had come at an enormous cost. Entire human squadrons were gone. Ships that had fought alongside Union forces lay in burning debris fields. The humans' methods had saved the galaxy, but not without sacrifice. Hale's voice was calm as he addressed the surviving crews. "The war is over here. We have done what needed to be done. Remember this. Survival demands courage, precision, and sacrifice. The galaxy lives because we endured." Union soldiers approached the humans with gratitude and awe. They had fought alongside legends, seen courage beyond imagination, and understood something they had never known before. Humans did not fight for glory or praise. They fought to survive, and in doing so they saved countless lives. Chancellor Alara spoke to the fleet, her voice trembling but strong. "Today we have witnessed the strength of a people unlike any other. The humans came when no allies answered. They fought when the galaxy wavered, and they have left a mark on history that none can forget. Across the Union, survivors returned to worlds liberated by the humans. Cities once occupied by cruel machines were free again. though their streets were scarred and buildings destroyed. People emerged cautiously, seeing the cost of survival in every ruin, yet understanding that they had been given a chance to rebuild. Union historians began to record the deeds of the humans, knowing that their bravery, cunning, and relentless spirit would be remembered for generations. And across the stars, whispers carried a simple truth. No allies came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. Even as the war ended, the humans did not linger. Hale and his surviving crews repaired their ships, patched what damage remained, and prepared to leave the Union space. Their purpose had never been to stay, to govern, or to seek reward. They fought because survival was their nature, and now their work was done. Before departing, Hale met with Chancellor Alera one last time. "We leave now," he said. "Do not mistake our absence for weakness. We have taught the galaxy one lesson. Survival requires more than hope. It requires action, courage, and the willingness to endure whatever comes." Alera nodded, understanding completely. "You have changed us forever. The galaxy will remember what you have done, and we will carry your lesson forward." Hale's eyes were steady. "Good, that is all we ask. Remember us not as heroes but as survivors, and never forget what survival demands." As the human fleet departed into the void, Union ships saluted. Citizens across liberated worlds watched their ships vanish into the stars, their hearts heavy with gratitude and awe. They had witnessed a people who fought differently, who survived when others would have fallen, and who had shaped the fate of the galaxy. Union historians wrote of the battles, describing the humans' courage, their sacrifice, and their ruthless efficiency. They would tell stories of the human survivors who came without promise, who risked everything, and who left the galaxy alive to remember them. And across the stars, in distant systems where war and peace danced in uncertain cycles, the legend grew. No allies came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. The humans' mark on history was complete. They had fought when no one else would, sacrificed when survival demanded it, and left a galaxy forever changed. And though their ships vanished into the void, their courage and spirit remained, a reminder that even against impossible odds, survival could be achieved, and that humans, once underestimated, were unstoppable. The stars were quiet, but only for a moment. The cruel were regrouping. Their massive fleets had withdrawn, but their ambition remained unbroken. They repaired, recalibrated, and built new machines, more numerous and stronger than before. The galaxy watched nervously, waiting for the next strike, knowing that hesitation could cost worlds. In the Union's capital, Chancellor Alera paced the high balcony overlooking the starfield. The fleets were ready, and scouts reported cruel activity on the edge of known space. The humans had advised aggressive strikes, but Union officers hesitated. They feared loss, feared risk, and most of all, feared the humans' unpredictable methods. But hesitation, as Hale had warned, would only give the cruel time. Commander Hale convened a meeting on the human flagship, the Iron Spear. Union officers were present, though their faces betrayed doubt and concern. Maps of the cruel fleet positions glowed across the table. Hale did not waste time with greetings or ceremony. "We know where they are," he said, tapping the display. "We know how they move. We also know their weakness. They cannot recover as fast as they build. But we cannot hit them directly. They will crush us if we attack in straight formation." A Union admiral leaned forward. "Then what do you suggest? How can a handful of humans challenge an entire cruel fleet?" Hale's lips pressed together. "We hit them where they least expect. A trap. We draw them into a confined system, use the gravity of the star to limit their movement, and force them to collide with their own numbers. Half of our fleet may be lost, but the other half will destroy much of theirs. It is high risk, but risk is the only way to survive." The counselors gasped. "Half of your fleet? You would sacrifice your own?" Hale's eyes were steady, unflinching. "Not sacrifice, calculate. War is not about fairness. It is about survival." Union officers were shocked. They had never seen such blunt honesty. Their own strategies relied on careful positioning, retreat, and preserving life whenever possible. To these humans, loss was not failure, it was a cost. Still, time was short. Reports indicated the Cruel were advancing faster than predicted. Hale gave his orders. Human ships would lead the attack, drawing the Cruel into the trap. Union fleets would follow, supporting from behind. Many Union captains wanted to refuse, to stay defensive. But Hale reminded them, without bold action, nothing will survive. The battle began before dawn. The star system chosen for the trap was narrow, its edges marked by gravitational anomalies that distorted sensors and weapons. The cruel fleet entered confidently, expecting an easy conquest. They had calculated no human interference could stop them. Then the human ships struck. They surged forward in reckless waves, ramming, firing, and exploding with precise timing. The Union observers held their breath as entire human squadrons collided with cruel lines, drawing the massive fleet into the heart of the system. The star's gravity tore through cruel ships, forcing collisions, disorienting machines that relied on perfect formation. The humans lost ships. Yes, many exploded into fireballs. Crews screamed, weapons jammed, and hulls cracked. But every loss inflicted devastating damage on the cruel. What looked like chaos to Union officers was a perfectly executed strategy by the humans, designed to make the enemy bleed more than themselves. Captain Duran watched from his command station in disbelief. The humans' methods were terrifying, yet strangely beautiful in their simplicity. They understood one truth. Sometimes to win, you must risk everything. One human ship rammed into a cruel carrier, detonating charges across its hull. The explosion shattered dozens of smaller enemy ships nearby. Another squadron fired missiles into a narrow gravitational corridor, causing a chain reaction that destroyed half a cruel formation. Union officers whispered among themselves. They are doing it, one said. They are winning. By throwing themselves into the fire. Hale moved among his crew calmly, issuing orders with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. Squadron Delta, flank left. Use the debris field as cover. Squadron Beta, hit the cruel frigates in sequence. Timing is everything. Each command was executed without hesitation. The humans worked together as if every ship, every crew member, every weapon was part of a single mind. Their unity and ruthlessness were unmatched. Duran realized something frightening. These humans had fought wars that Union officers could not imagine. They had learned to win when there was no hope, to survive when all was lost, and now they were teaching the Union the meaning of true battle. The cruel for the first time hesitated. Their perfectly calculated movements faltered as more of their fleet collided with the traps. Machine commanders attempted to adjust, but the humans' reckless attacks created impossible variables. They could not predict the chaos. Their advantage, their perfection, was slipping away. And then came the pivotal strike. Hale himself led a small squadron into the center of the cruel mass, carrying a payload of experimental explosives captured from previous battles. The Union watched through sensors as the squadron weaved through enemy ships, dodging fire, exploding near carriers, and triggering chain reactions. The explosions were massive, tearing apart the cruel fleet. Entire wings of machine ships were obliterated. Yet almost no human ships returned. They had given themselves fully to the mission. When the last signal from Hale's squadron went silent, the observers feared the worst. They expected the humans to be gone, their sacrifices complete. But then the survivors appeared. Few in number. Battered and smoking, the human ships emerged from the chaos. Hale himself returned on the Iron Spear, its hull scarred, shields failing but still intact. He had lost many, yes, but he had achieved the impossible. The cruel fleet was broken. Their forward advance halted, their confidence shaken, and the galaxy realized something it had not before. Humans did not fight like the rest of the galaxy. They did not calculate risks in the same way. They used courage and survival instinct as weapons, and those weapons were terrifyingly effective. Union officers and counselors could barely comprehend what they had witnessed. The humans had risked almost everything, yet they had achieved victory. And more than that, they had changed the course of the war. Chancellor Alara stood in silence as she reviewed the reports. She knew the Union owed their lives to these outsiders, yet she also understood the warning behind Hale's methods. These humans were not gentle heroes. They were forces of nature unbound by hesitation or sentiment. One counselor murmured, "They are dangerous. Too dangerous." "Yes," Alara replied softly, "but they are necessary. Without them, we would all be gone." Across the galaxy, the cruel retreated to repair, but the humans were not finished. They did not pursue for glory nor to claim victory. They studied the enemy, learned their weaknesses, and prepared for the next strike. Every loss, every victory, every maneuver was part of their unbroken chain of survival experience. Hale addressed the remaining human crews. "We have won today, but the war is not over. Machines do not stop. Neither do we. Remember this. The galaxy survives because we will not die quietly. Every world we save, every fleet we break is proof that survival is not given. It is taken." The crew nodded. They had fought for centuries in their history and in legend. Every human knew the cost of hesitation. Every human knew the value of relentless courage. And now, they had shown the galaxy why they were feared, respected, and needed. For the first time, the Union began to see the truth of the humans. They were not conventional allies. They were not here to follow rules or obey etiquette. They were here because they survived, because they understood war in its rawest form, and because they refused to be defeated. And the galaxy began to whisper a name with awe and fear: the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars.